My modern thinking of design is very much founded in her priority of like a connection between audience and performer. And my role in that is about supporting that. If I get in the way of that, then I'm not doing my job. Like sometimes these larger companies fail in their trust of younger designers because they need to deliver a good product to continue to function. What's the point of theatre if it's not saying something important? I think it's an incredibly human play that requires me getting out of the way of it and not doing anything incredibly rash. But it does require a level of sophistication to it.
You don't need to see the act.
You don't need to see the actors. Like just like it looks fab. So screw you. Like,
hi, I'm Susie Rong, and this is the Here We Are podcast, where you can catch me having seriously fun chit chats with my friends in the theatre business. Today, we're shining the spotlight on Brockman. We speak to you from unceded Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation, better known by its colonial name of Sydney. This podcast is brought to you by the Here We Are app, created specifically for people who love theatre, whether you're a practitioner or an avid audience member. Here We Are is a new social media alternative that allows us to share our passions for the theatre in a digital space designed by people who devote their lives to the arts, distinct from the billionaire tech companies who clearly don't care very much about it. Do you know how many times I've reviewed your work?
Well, I know that we started around the same time.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming up to year 15 now.
Yeah.
And so that means you are too.
I'm, I think, about 13.
Okay.
My first review for you was 2014, and it has been 58 reviews.
Did you go back through the website and count?
For everyone else, I had to type out, like, all the instances of, I saw this person in this show, and I would type the dates and everything so that, if I needed to get a reference, I could. But I couldn't do it for you. I can't type 58 shows. So I've only got like the last.
What was the first?
The first is Cough, 2014 April.
Ah, okay.
But that wasn't your first show out of school.
No, definitely not.
Oh.
No. I mean, like I do a lot out of, because I studied at NIDA at the National Institute of Dramatic Arts. And I graduated in 2011. And I think my first show was maybe at the Bondi Pavilion with Jimmy Doughton. And it was, I think it was the title of the play is Awkward Conversations with Animals I Want to Fuck.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant play.
The one I saw production of that was a few years after. So it's come back. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, the old 505, where, so we did one at the Bondi Pav for Bondi Feast. I think it's called Bondi Feast.
Yeah.
Bondi Feast. And then we did a secondary version of it at what used to be the old 505 Theatre on Elizabeth Street. At the
Surrey Hills one.
At the Surrey Hills one, at the top of that terrifying...
I lived in that building.
Get out of town.
I lived in that building for maybe 1.5 years, I think like 1999 or something. Like the complete fire hazard.
Yeah, and like a death trap. A full death trap.
And like you wouldn't take the lifts because it was so terrifying.
Yes, and you thought you'd get stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you would have to use the staircase, but sometimes you would encounter things like human poo.
Yeah.
Or a person with a needle sticking out.
Yeah.
That's so.
I think that house was like the ultimate version of like New York Bohemia.
Yeah. It's full fantasy.
Yeah.
In the middle of like Australianness.
Were you sharing like an apartment?
This is so interesting. So this was this older guy who worked for a while at Sydney Theatre Company as a props person.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was his sort of kind of main identity. He was really good with creating things. So this kind of loft, this warehouse, he had completely renovated it, turned it into like a workshop, his whole own living quarters. But it was so big that he was able to create a separate little apartment that he would rent out at huge money. But because it was 1999 and I was really new to this country, I had no idea that was huge money. I just thought, if you want to live in the city, that was the kind of money that you pay for in the dilapidated old building. So it was great though. And I had the best time. That was when I was partying the hardest. Yeah, because you just wanted to be able to walk up to Oxford Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Outside your front door.
yeah,
Pick up a needle. And
I had, I had no idea that was a theater, but obviously the theater probably went in there after I moved out.
yeah, because they were on the very top floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that building. I wanted to live there so bad.
But your first show wasn't in Old Five Line. Your first show was at Bondi Pavilion.
Bondi Pavilion, yeah. So some of my first shows were just like in empty rooms that had PowerPoints where you could put like maybe 2 or 3 lights.
And a lot of them were with Jimmy Dalton.
Yes, yeah, because we had graduated around the same time. So they had studied the directing course, and we did I did their graduating show, which was called The Labyrinth. And it was sort of this incredible immersive production where we had the designer, Dylan, I can't remember their last name, but they created this sort of like tented dome, and everyone kind of sat around in this tented dome on the floor, and then they built this like plinth in the middle that we put like 26 lights in, and then there was like an egg that like had goo coming out of it. It was off the wall nuts. Like, I loved it.
I can imagine, because I love Jimmy Dalton's work, and it's kind of really imaginative. It's really kind of visual, theatrical, rather than, always about the narrative.
Yep.
It's not always about the narrative. It's not usually about the characters. So when you were in NIDA, was it lighting in specific?
No, so I studied, at the time it was called technical production. It's now called stage management and technical production, I think. TTSM is the abbreviation. Technical theatre and stage management. So that's kind of like a very broad brushstroke sort of course in terms of like you study stage management, you study production management, you do lighting, you do sound, you do stage mechanism. So it gives you the whole breadth of technical knowledge. And then throughout the years, so in year 1, you have to be an assistant stage manager on a show, and then also like a technical assistant. In your second year, you have to be have a sort of a more senior sort of technical role, whether that's like a head electrician or a sound designer at that time. And then you had to do like a deputy stage manager role where you called a show. And then in your third year, you had to do a technical design, lighting, sound, or technical manager. And then you had to do a production manager role on the show.
When you graduated and you started working with Jimmy Dalton, I went into this like really, really creative space. Like the wildest imaginable work that you can do. Obviously, I would imagine that's very satisfying.
Yeah, it was fun to be. It felt like you were hanging out with your friends and just trying to creating something. And I think I look back on that time of starting as being incredibly bold and incredibly brash. I think obviously having seen my work for over 15 years, it has very much evolved into something that's a little bit more elegant and considered. But back then I just didn't give a shit. And it was hypercolor. It was they don't need to be seen, or side light, backlight, whatever. Like, just
you don't need to see the act.
You don't need to see the actors. Like, just like it looks fab. So screw you. Like I think it was incredibly. I think I was an incredibly overt designer back when I first started, and now, as I've worked with more people, as I've kind of got to understand what this thing we do as storytelling, like I've got my priorities in terms of what I do and my function within this environment has shifted. And I attribute that a lot to Lee Lewis. She taught me. Lee Lewis is a very well-known Australian director. My modern thinking of design is very much founded in her priority of like a connection between audience and performer. And my role in that is about supporting that. If I get in the way of that, then I'm not doing my job. Like, I think I've learned over the years that this transaction that we experience in theatre between the audience and thing, that's the most important connection that you can have. And I just sometimes need to get out of the way of that.
Do you think you're able to get out of the way of that now because you've done it? Like it's out of your system?
Yep, it's out of my system. I think because I was so laissez-faire about everything back in the day, I think because I was able to get all of that out and just experiment and play, I can now go, well, I did it. Like I did that.
Do you think the experimentation that you did so much of in the early years of a career, do you think that stood in the way of a career path that you had expected for yourself?
I think there's definitely, I realized quite maybe 3 or 4 years into it that I had developed, I think, like a bit of a stigma that Ben is just camp. Like they're going to put, pink lights and green lights and mirror balls and like they can't do subtlety. And I think that stuck with me for a long time. And I think people chose not to engage me, not engage in my work for a long time or work with me because they thought that's what I would deliver for their show. But I think I was 21 and I just kind of wanted to do shit that was fun and play, because I think what you get at the National Institute of Dramatic Art is a very broad brushstroke of this job, but you don't really get to play with it until you go out and do it yourself. And I think I was 21. I had I grew up in Hobart, Tasmania, like small town sort of vibes. Like I'd come out when I was 17. I'd moved to Sydney. I was like, oh my God, I could just be gay. And so I think that then that sort of like self-expression of like, wanting to be brash and overt and like in your face and be authentic and different, like kind of then seeped into my work.
So in a sense, they were right. You wouldn't be able to be hired if you wanted a kind of show about that required realism.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the first show that required me to do realism was a real struggle. Yeah. I had to really think about it.
How did you get people to trust you to do realism then? How did that transition?
I think that transition happened because of just someone taking a bit of a risk on me, and that was Lee Lewis. So Lee Lewis gave me my first main stage at Griffin Theatre Company. And
which show was that?
That was Replay by
very realistic.
Very realistic.
Yeah.
And I had obviously worked a lot at Griffin because obviously in the early days of being a designer, like the jobs are not incredibly well paid. Like you're working on profit share or like no money, or you get $500 for a show. So like I supplemented that with like, I was the production coordinator at Griffin Theatre Company for maybe 2 or 3 years. I stage managed shows for 2 years. And so I was around that building a lot, and I saw other people work that building. I saw other designers work in that space, which is obviously an incredibly difficult space to work in, given it's a sort of like a diamond kite shape, a very unusual thing where you kind of have to think about lighting from multiple angles or perspectives because audience view it in very different ways. So I had seen incredible designers work in that room. People like Verity Hanson, who's a great Australian lighting designer, Matt Marshall. I'd been around and a part of that process through as a stage manager. So when I got to working my first show there as a lighting designer, I had seen other people tackle the space, which gave me confidence to go, okay, I saw that person do this, and so I know that works. Okay, I saw that person do that. My first version of it was like sort of this like Frankenstein version of kind of what other people had did and what I'd seen work and what I'd seen hadn't. And yeah, that was, it went really well.
I remember it was frustrating for you.
Yes, it was. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, because you felt like you understood what people were hiring you for.
Yeah.
It sounded like you felt like, but this isn't really me.
No.
But actually, it's more a case of you discovering a different part, right?
Yeah, I think it was about discovering the different facet, like the different role of my job. Like I did, to be honest, like I really, and I hope you're not listening to this, Lee. I did really hate that show. Like I hated working on it because I felt like I was suppressing something. And I felt like I wasn't authentic. But I think that then started me on this journey of like, well, what is my place within this collaborative process of theatre making? It was a real struggle to do that, to feel like I was not being me.
You do different things. You have directed a show recently.
Yeah.
You do quite a bit of set design.
Yes,
and you mentioned to me earlier that you did a costume design.
I did one costume design.
But essentially, mostly about lights.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that sit in terms of a design person?
I think that's a really fascinating question. Because I think there is jobs now that I do for money. And I know what my part to play in this. This play may not interest me. This show may not interest me, but it's either that I do it for the paycheck or because of, I am very career orientated. And I mean, I want to get to a certain level in my life, and so there has been jobs that I've taken to get to that point that may not actually be authentically something that I'm interested in, but I know that there is a point that you kind of have to do these particular shows to get to a certain place. The shows that I've been like most myself in had then been more independent stuff, because I've been able to do these shows that are a little bit more high profile and like better paid, that has then allowed me to do stuff that is less well paid or a little bit more risky and a little bit more interesting, where I can explore this other facet of myself and get back to a version of what I am now, which I think, plays like Cleansed by Sarah Kane that I did. I think that was, that I co-designed with Morgan Maroney, was probably like the height of like my visual aesthetic.
So is it a lot about what the text is saying?
Yeah, I think I've said of late, like, what's the point of doing a show if it doesn't speak to...
So if you come across a text that really interests you,
yep,
and then it asks for something really plain and realistic, would you still feel like it's authentic to you?
I think now, yes. Yeah, back in the day I wouldn't have. No, but I think now what's the point of theatre if it's not saying something important? Like sometimes I feel like in this country in particular, that sometimes we put on plays for putting on plays' sake, and I go, well, what is the relevance to in an Australian context? Like, why is this important to us now? Given that we live in such an incredibly multicultural society, sometimes I go, well, we're just doing this play because it won a drama desk award or some shit like that, and that's...
We do have to work with a lot of people who have those values, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have that as a passion, I guess.
Yeah.
And you and I think we align quite well. And then there are the people who do different work that we kind of don't really appreciate that much. But but my position as a reviewer is very different from yours, as someone who's kind of hands-on working. How often do they want to come and ask you to do work on the show that they're doing? People that that think very differently, and they pick texts that are so like different from what you're...
Not often. It's I kind of feel very I don't know how the designer choice happens at a larger scale. Like, it still feels very mysterious to me. I'm up to my Sydney Theatre Company is probably the biggest state theatre company in Australia, and I'm up to my 4th show with them now. 15 years into designing, I've never done a show at Belvoir, and I go, well, how does this work? At what point do you get chosen or picked or what I think I described it to another friend this morning as plucked out of obscurity to just get a job? Like, I sometimes feel like there is no artistic merit in it, and that like it doesn't matter what type of a designer you are. It's just either about availability or trust. At a larger level, because Australia has because of the funding in Australia for the arts, they rely so much on subscribers and so much on like, you know, revenue from ticket sales. Sometimes these larger companies fail in their trust of younger designers because they need to deliver a good product to continue to function. So there is a level of risk in employing a new or younger designer. And so that I think very much heavily weighs on their choices of designers, of set designers and costume designers and lighting designers, and that's a very honest opinion about, I think, how people get chosen.
In 20 years,
yeah,
when you become, you know, like established, like serious, right? And people go, oh, we'll just have to hire Brockman because they're part of the furniture now.
Mm-hmm, basically, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that's what
you live in the wall.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what you are kind of faced with.
Yep.
Because there are some jobs that clearly you are more than adequate.
Yep.
but you don't get picked because other people are part of the furniture.
Yeah.
But when you become part of the furniture in 20 years, do you feel like you're going to be able to say, we'll let someone do it?
Yes, because I think I am a big advocate for young. I'm very passionate about young emerging designers and the opportunities that they should be given. I think that larger companies have failed emerging designers with their lack of programs and support. We have a lot of programs that support sort of new directors. We have a lot of programs that support new playwrights, which are incredibly important. But we don't have a lot of programs that support young designers. They come and go. There was the emerging designers program that STC had a few years ago that had 3 designers across lighting, set, and sound. That has disappeared. A long time ago, Belvoir used to have a scholarship for designers, for lighting designers in particular. That has disappeared, and I think that's just in a state of this sort of funding problem. Like, you know, these projects cost money. And so, you know, they're the first things to get cut when there's issues, but also that puts young emerging designers at a disadvantage when it comes to engaging with these larger companies, because, you know, you work to a point and then suddenly you get an opportunity, and that comes from whether, I don't know why that kind of just happens. And then, you know, if you don't deliver on that first show, then you don't get to come back.
I feel like you have some zenness about these challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you didn't use.
No. I was angry for a long time. So like, I've worked so hard, like, you know, in my first year of like full out designing, I did 43 shows. And like, when you think about it, that's like a tech week nearly every week. And there was weeks where I was overlapping shows, and like, it was absolutely nuts. Like I worked like a dog. And then, you know, the following year I did like 34 shows. And then as I went on, and as I got bigger, in inverted commas, the shows became better paid, they became larger, and that's great. But there was a point where I felt like I got stuck. And that was pre-COVID, where I felt like, and this was just before the renovation of the Wharf. So STC moved, Sydney Theatre Company moved off-site. And so there was a larger risk because they were working in theatres like the Drama Theatre, at the Ros Packer for all their shows. So they weren't going to put a new designer in that space. There was no trust that someone who has just come from doing 5 or 6 years of independent work that could tackle that space. So I was stalled for 3 or 4 years whilst they renovated the Wharf. And then post-COVID, my first opportunity came after doing a production of Overflow by Travis Alabanza. That suddenly like launched me off into this thing of main stage bigger state theatre company main stages. I'd worked the middle tier. So I'd done Griffin Theatre Company a few times, Ensemble Theatre, the Hayes Theatre. So I'd been stuck in that sort of like middle band and never being able to sort of step up into that bigger thing. And then, that first opportunity came to do Constellations by Nick Payne. And like, because I was at a point where I was so ready at that stage, like I killed it. I thought I killed it.
That, for the record, was the most visually stunning show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think,
and it won every award.
It snatched the award.
It snatched the award.
Snatched the awards.
And you're very happy because you had previously won a lighting design award at the Sydney Theatre Awards.
Two previous.
Yeah. Was it two previous?
Yeah, so Metamorphosis was my first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the Old Fitz. And then
Angels?
No, Sydney Fantastique.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember, even though we gave you 2 lighting awards, I felt like you were frustrated.
I was, because you think like the awards like, given like this big ceremony where we all come together as a theatre community to celebrate, you think that this certificate in a frame is going to launch you into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And after I thought, I wanted it so much that I thought, this is going to change my career. After the first one, it didn't. And I'm like, well, great. Awesome. Nothing happened. I'm like, great. Got another one. Nothing happened. I'm like, cool. So it's great recognition and I feel incredibly proud and honored, but like to a career path, these mean nothing in this country, which is
as far as you know.
As far as I know, yeah. To me, it didn't launch me to the next part of my career
immediately. But eventually it happened.
It did eventually, yeah.
And then I was really happy that because I knew of your frustrations, and also because I'm such a great admirer of your work, I felt like it's somehow really good timing that the first show allowed you to really flex your muscles.
Yes.
Like you weren't required to go in and do a realistic presentation. So you went in with Sydney Theatre Company for the first time and it was like, the whole place was like a spaceship taking off. Am I right in this?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got recognized right away. I want to know how did it feel like, oh, now I got there, or did it go like, oh, actually, I was ready before?
I think I went in knowing that I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, because I think I'd gotten to a point where I hadn't, like I felt like I'd been fighting and I felt like I'd been pushing and getting nowhere. I think I walked in going, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And like, I didn't get scared by the machine. And so I just went in going, I'm just going to be myself. And if that means that after this one show, I fade off into obscurity, then that's what it's meant to be. And I'm okay with that.
You were just going to be yourself.
I was just going to be myself.
That whole period, I felt like a different person emerged.
From that point?
I feel like around that time.
Yeah.
I draw the line from that happening. Maybe it's a COVID. And then it's Constellations, your first Sydney Theatre Company show. And then suddenly you were like on this race to a big transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I stopped caring what people, I stopped trying to impress people, I think, and going, okay, my work will speak for itself. My artistry will speak for itself. My personality will speak for itself. There will be shows that I'm not going to love, but there will be shows that come that I will love. American Science, which is another one I did at Sydney Theatre Company, is probably one of my all-time favourite productions I've ever done, because that allowed me to be stylistically more interesting. So I think when you push so hard for so long, and then you like, it's like when you look for love or like for a partner, and you go, when you stop looking, it happens. When you stop trying to force love, it happens. And so I think when I stopped trying to force it, it happened. And I think when when I released some of that energy, it just kept happening. I go, okay, cool. I'm comfortable with myself, and I'm comfortable with the jobs that I'm going to get, and I'm also comfortable with the jobs that I'm not going to get, and it's fine. It's okay. I think there's a lot of fear as a young designer that you're never going to get hired again, and so there's a lot of push, and a lot of drive. But the reality is, like, I think I had that same mentality of, I'm not going to get work, and I was in maybe year 7, and I go like, well, I'm still working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the jobs still come.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be the jobs that I thought they would be, but they're still rolling out, they're still happening. So I think that fear of I will never get work again has to, or like my year is not full, or I've got a gap, like it gets filled.
In 2023, when we did Constellations, you were not single yet?
No.
But it was the end of a personal relationship? I felt like it was around that time.
It was around that time. So yes, my relationship of 8 years had ended. It's ended about like maybe nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just under 2 years ago. But like, like financially, that relationship wasn't supporting my career. It just like that person was an incredibly supportive person of my artwork and helped me keep going. They were the person in my corner that drove me to keep pushing. And they were so proud of me when it happened. And like, I thank them for all of the shit that they did for me when I would come home and I'd be upset, or I'd be like, really struggling with where I was at and going. And they would come to my shows. They would they would support me. They would talk about things with me, and like they were a great sounding board and a big support of my career at that point. Yeah.
But what happened?
What happened?
I think it's sort of my experience as well.
Yeah.
Like when you become more a whole person,
mm-hmm.
I feel like the more I'm whole, the more I'm harder to be in a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And when you told me that you become single, I saw it as, not only have you become much more kind of sure of yourself as an artist,
mm-hmm.
maybe in a personal space, you just felt like you probably were going to become more of your own person as a single person.
Yeah, I think being in we got into a relationship when I was 25, and now I'm turning 35. And I think you're so different in your mid-20s to when you are in your 30s. And I think at that point, I think things just sort of like we were just sort of different people, and some things just didn't quite align, and we couldn't sort of resolve.
That happened later, though.
Yeah, it happened later. Yeah, it happened later. And like, I still consider them like a really great friend, and we still talk and we communicate. Like, it's not like we ended on really bad terms. I just think for me, I needed to resolve some personal issues. As we were talking about earlier, I'm incredibly snatched now. And like,
so you're talking about your weight?
My weight, yeah. My weight and like my eating habits. Like I had a big eating problem where I was an emotional eater, and I think like a lot of work would affect me where I would binge eat, and like, at my heaviest I was 160 kilos, and I think I really needed to resolve that through therapy. And I think part of our relationship was very much based around food, and like any relationship is based around going out, eating and enjoying yourselves and stuff like that. So like, but like I felt like I was eating more through an emotional lens. When things would upset me, I would eat. I'd eat in the car. Like I would like double dinners, that type of thing. So I think I needed time away to really work on that and work on myself. And so
time away from that?
From being in a relationship.
Oh, right, because a lot of the relationship had to do with the eating as well.
Yes, had to do with the eating and stuff like that. And I think, I just really needed to go away and deal.
What made you realize it?
There was a day, like we could like come out of our houses at COVID and we went to the movies with a friend and I wore like a grey tracksuit and I thought I looked sickening. I thought I was stunning. Because I think, like I said earlier, I think I had body dysmorphia, but in a different way where I thought I was fat. Like, you know, and there was a bunch of people.
So you're saying when you were 160 kilograms, you had no problem with it?
I had no problem with it because I think as I had grown up big, like I'd always been big. And I think when you grow up big, that forms a big part of your personality and the way that you function and the way that you meet people. And I think that was also a part of, like, interestingly, how it kind of seeped into my work about being, you know, if people are going to look at you because you're fat, then you might as well give them something to look at, and be a funny, big person who's irreverent and just living their most fabulous life. And you kind of become this big personality because you're embodying this big body. Because if people are going to look at you, rather than being the joke, then you be someone that they want to engage with, and they want to talk to. So I think that formed a big part of my personality, and I think I needed to work through some of my eating issues.
But because you were so used to being that big person, physically and personality-wise, it was so much a part of you. And I always observed that, like, you never came across like you had any hang-ups about your size.
No problems.
And then I'm assuming something happened and you go that, oh, maybe this thing that I'm really used to, it's not great.
No, it's not great. And I think that was a health thing too. Like, at 160 kilos, you know, that's not great for your health. And like, how long can I sustain this lifestyle? Like, that would possibly kill me. So it was about like living longer and being fitter and not, you know, like I think when I started my health journey, like I could probably barely walk like maybe like a kilometer without going, oh, I'm so tired, like I need to sit down, I need to go home. And now I can walk a good 5 or 6 kilometers without, you know, breaking a sweat. And so I think for me, it was about quality of life. And also because like at that size, like, you know, there was things that you know, you couldn't shop at shopping centers. So everything had to be custom, which like I'm all for custom couture, but like, you know, your t-shirts, you know, I had to get t-shirts made, especially for my body. Like, I would shop online because I didn't want to go to shopping centers because like nothing would fit. So like you'd go on like places like Shein or ASOS, which are, you know, not super ethical, but like you would buy like 10 different sizes and then go, okay, this one fits me in the private of my home, and then send the other 9 back. And that was a big thing that I kind of also wanted to have, is like I wanted to feel like I fit into this societal version of what, you know, fat people are so ostracized from a normal society settings that I wanted to experience those things.
Am I right to say that when you were saying about how you were used to being the life of the party, you were used to being like the, you know, the biggest personality in the room, am I right to say that there's something inauthentic about that? Yeah.
Yep.
And then you needed to find somewhere that's not about that. Yeah, because I keep seeing this parallel between your work and your physical person. Like, as you became small, your work sort of became less showy. You know, not that I love the show. but I did notice that, the whole person, the whole personality and the art has become, in a sense, a little bit like, I don't want to say honest because it's such a cliche word, but it's just less about distraction. Yeah.
And I think, you know, as a designer, your work, it is an art form. Like, it is art. It's an extension of your own personality. And as much as you kind of go, it's like you feel like you separate yourself from it. Like, it actually comes from a very deep place within that then kind of like flows out in a particular way. So, you know, yes, being brash and being big and bold in the early years was probably endued because I felt like I this whole facade or personality of me, this thing that I created had to kind of extend into my artwork. And as I've gotten smaller, as I've come to terms with my body, and like as I've kind of like gone on this journey, then I think my work has also changed and evolved into something that's probably a little bit more pulled back. Like, don't get me wrong, like I can still do CAD. But like I can, like it's considered, it's more introspective, it's deeper. There's a lot more thought that goes into the work and a lot more self-reflection about like my place within the work and what it means to me and how can I tell that story like that. I think before it was kind of like my early years, I think I said earlier, like I just didn't care. Like I just did it. And I think that's because maybe I was scared of looking inward and going, well, like, where do I sit within this work? So I just did, and whatever came out, came out.
I feel like a lot of art seems to me that to require the artist to feel as deep as they can in the creation of something or the interpretation of something. And I feel like if you are preoccupied with a facade or an idea of yourself, it almost works as a block, right? It doesn't allow you to really feel a level of depth that's going to make the art resonate in a really big way.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you were able to break through that.
Yeah.
Just like the gender thing. I need to ask you this because I'm already curious.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
That normally I think it's a bit impolite to ask because people kind of don't,
Knock yourself.
Because people like don't owe you an explanation. But we're here to have a serious chat, okay? Mm-hmm. As a non-binary person, let's start with how did you come to a point where you were gonna out yourself and declare that you're a non-binary person?
I think that's through the work that I did, through exploring the plays like that I worked on with particular people that was exploring a big theme of gender and transgenderness and queer politics. And I think from talking about looking inward and looking deeper into yourself with the work, I think a lot of that required me to then look deeper and inward with that work. And I think I felt at the time, I was like, well, I feel like I don't quite fit either or. I still haven't, I haven't really told my family, because my family all still live in Hobart. And they're great people. They support me in my queerness, but we've never really had the whole conversation about it because I go, well, I don't think there's any real point to it for them, because I just think for me it feels very hard to kind of go, well, this is you've accepted me as this and now it's this, and I go, I think just let that part of my life be that part of my life. But here in Sydney I am very vocal and very open about it, and I
would say that the big difference is that with people in Hobart, for example, you have the burden of explaining the whole concept before explaining yourself.
Yeah.
In Sydney, which happened with me, was when you felt like you didn't have to explain the entire concept, entire history of human gender before telling people that, oh, I'm trans. Yeah. Because these conversations had been had, in my case, 3 to 5 years before.
Yeah.
So when you come in and you say, I'm one of those people, quicker. Yeah. But if I had tried to explain that to people 5 years before, I had to explain to them what is sex, what is gender, and it becomes too hard and too hard for one person to explain to every person they come across. Yeah. So I would understand that in Hobart, there's so much of that you simply can't deal with.
Yeah, and I don't really want to deal with that. I think, I think it's an incredibly interesting thing. I was going to say something quite
how did you discover though?
Through conversation, through just talking about it, through going, well, what is it? I think the conversations on the show is about gender and gender politics and transness and gender diversity. I think just through talking about it and going, well, what is your experience? Like when you work on a show, you unpack things and you bring so much of your own personality and your own life into it. And I go, well, you know, these people were having these conversations and here I am in the room listening to it and I'm talking about it. So then you go, well, I discover parts of myself and you go like, oh, maybe that is relevant to me or maybe that's not relevant to me. You know, there's for me, because I have a lot of trans friends, a lot of gender diverse friends, and I've worked with those people, like I do have a little bit of what I call like trans guilt, where I don't refer to myself as trans. I would say that I'm gender diverse because I don't want to take away from the experience of actually transgender people. Because I go, if you saw me walking down the street, I'd like, you wouldn't clock that anything was different other than like, I feel like I can be incredibly masc or male presenting. And I don't ever want to take away the lived experience of a trans woman who,
or you think the challenges are different?
The challenges are different. And like, you know, there's like, you know, when you think of like the whole, in global politics, this whole sort of like tirade against transgender people and this whole bathroom politic conversation, it's like, you know, that like I am slightly removed in that I am obviously a little bit like I again walk down the street, no one could ever tell, but there's people who that really affects and who that really impacts, and like I don't ever want to take away from their experience and make it about my own. Like I don't want to be louder than them because their voices need to sing higher than mine.
Do you feel like as a gender diverse person, what is your conception of the binary, the male, female? How does it apply to you, I wonder? Because sometimes I think when people say that they're non-binary, I wonder, do they think that they are neither male nor female? Or do they think that they are gender fluid both? Or do they just don't understand or don't buy into the concept of the binary at all?
I think it's a very personal journey. For me, I think like within there's both. Like I think I have a beautiful family of 3 older sisters and my mom and my dad. And I think like those women have influenced me and my life. And I go, those women live within me and I embody so much of their spirit and so much of their energy and personality. But also there is like this sort of like more hyper masculine side to my personality. Like, you know, I could pick up a power tool and angle grind away, chop things up and, you know, what we consider like, you know, masculine things. I think I both live within me, but neither one is dominant. You know, I can be very camp and, effervescent, is that the word? Yeah, like absolutely like flamboyant and like and you know wear dresses and heels and all that type of stuff and that part of me comes out in one way and then you know like I can flip the other way. And
the way that you dress is as well as really interesting.
Is it?
Because it became because I'm trying to recall the transitionary time.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time it became so like this person is invisible, just like black.
Oh, yeah, black, yeah.
Yeah, and just like the person is trying to disappear, even though, you know, like I said, you're always like the life of the party. But just kind of really like there's no shape, there's no distinction of what's happened. And then it became soft. It became deliberately feminized a little bit. You started wearing things that like look like aprons or skirts and things like that, didn't you?
Yep.
So how does that, friends? You know, because they wear like neither skirt nor pants. So has that been searching for freedom? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think for a long time the black thing was about like hiding my body, and I think I attributed clothes to like, you know, if you wear, the one thing that I love about like monochromatic color is that it creates a block. And like you don't look at the individual pieces. Like I think a lot of people, like clothing for a lot of people is about personality and creating these different sort of like, you know, this shirt says this and these pants say that, and like the way that you throw it together. For me, I wanted you to look at me and go, it's just one thing. It's just one one color, one tone, and then you can look beyond the personality of the clothes and maybe see the shape of it or the shapelessness of it. I kind of described like my sense of style as more like a jellyfish, where it's sort of like it just is sort of very just nondescript and just very kind of like just moves. And I think the black for a long time was about hiding, was about shapelessness and thinking that black, the thing about, black is slimming. And I think it was about not injecting too much personality into the clothes so that they didn't then maybe have any sort of preconceived notion about who I was. And I think, again, as I've gotten thinner, like I've been able to explore different clothing. I found an amazing designer, this like Spanish designer who has an atelier in Paris, and like they make clothing for all genders, all sizes, all people.
Name them.
Louis from LR3. Babe, I love your clothes. I mean, they're expensive, but like beautiful detail. I saw them on TikTok once, and their clothes are oversized, and it's the way that you tie it up, it's the way that you button it up that like gives you shape and form. And so I found them when I was about 150 kilos, and I sent them an email. They're like, "Hi, I'm 150 kilos. I really love your clothes. I've never found anything that has quite like allowed me to feel beautiful. Would they fit me?" And they said, "Take some photos, send us some measurements, and we'll see what we can," because everything is like made to order. So yeah, and I bought my first piece from them maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I have fallen in love with the look of it. And I think, I bought this outfit that I'm wearing now from them when I was about 130, and it still fits me now.
99?
99. She's on the she broke the triple ditch. So those clothes were an investment and made me feel special. It made me feel like I was a part of a larger global conversation about fashion, about like, I think like as I've grown up, there's been this sort of like shift from like, this whole sort of supermodel ethos to thin Victoria's Secret to like, bigger bodies and fuller bodies and people that we would consider more natural in a way. And I these clothes made me feel like I was thought about.
I'm going to ask you about sight.
Sight.
Eyes.
Yeah.
Because you work in lighting mainly.
Yeah.
Why do some people see better than others? I think I'm thinking in terms of like a style thing. Like obviously some people are good at identifying, oh, that's really stylish, oh, that's really beautiful. Some people seem to not have it. That's my claim. And on a deeper level, I feel like some people have probably a greater capacity to look at something and it translates into emotion or something. Like it goes in and then it becomes something, right? So I'm assuming, because I'm observing your work and there's so much like of your work that's so astute, I'm feeling like, oh, the visual is conveying something in a much more powerful way in terms of emotions or maybe it might even be in intellect more than the actors could do or something, because a lot of what you do is amplification. Right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this thing. Like, do you think it can be trained? Like, some people see better than others?
I think it is. I think you can teach technique. You can't teach a sense of style. I think a sense of style is something that has to be deep with it. You can nurture it. There's like, one of my favorite things to do now is to mentor young designers and work with sort of younger students and stuff like that. And like, I can see when there's a spark, and then you go, oh my God, you have something. You have a twinkle of something that could be something bigger. But some people just don't have that. So it starts small and then gets nurtured and developed. And then I think you develop your own sense of style through provocation and challenge. So when I've been working with these sort of younger designers, I would never, I think, for me, design is very much about like rule breaking. You can know the foundationary rules of like, this is what people do. Like, front light is at a 45-degree angle. There's some backlight, which brings you off the set. There's like high sides and side light and footlight and like all these things to do with lighting that you go, these are the foundationary things, but it's like how you manipulate those and like rearrange it or don't or break the rules, which is what makes design come to life, in a sense of style come to life. Someone once said to me, which I find is a very foundational thing in my thinking, is like they said to me when I was studying, front light doesn't have to come from the front, and I'm like, that
blown away.
Blew my heart. It absolutely, like, it actually blew my tiny brain.
Where did you hear that?
That was when I was in third year NIDA.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, I think, something has stuck to me. I've repeated it to multiple people.
Just as a principle.
As a principle, that front light doesn't have to come from the front. And so that kind of go, okay, yes, there's all these things that you can do, but actually you don't have to do that. You can break the rules. You can change it and like manipulate it. And that's where the art comes in, and that's where the artistry happens. But yeah, style is like
intrinsic.
It's intrinsic. It's deep within. But you can tell when someone has. I'm currently working with a student now at a private school, and he's doing a line design for a student director thing, and I can see him thinking about things, which is incredibly inspiring, because he's in year 12, and I go, you have it, because you can recognize that there's a problem. You may not be able to articulate what the problem is or what you're feeling, but you've recognized that there is something a little bit wrong with what you're seeing right now, and now we can talk about what that might be or what you're feeling. So like, it comes as intuition. And then you nurture it into identification, and you go, okay, well, that's why that isn't working. That's why that fade doesn't quite fit. Lighting is inherently musical. Like you hear it like music, and the way that it flows out to you is like how music is written. Like it flows and it grows and it diminishes and it comes and it cuts and it's like staccatos, or like it's incredibly music, and that's the way that it should like come out of your body is in this musicality. And some people have no rhythm.
Do you worry about bad taste in your work?
Nah. I think I've done. I think I've done. I don't know. I think I've done one or two. I don't know. Have I ever done a stinker?
I don't think so.
No.
And I'm trying to think why that is. I think it's because you always take big swings.
Yep.
Right? So it's very hard to criticize something as bad taste when it's so almost like self-knowing. It kind of knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think maybe because if I do a bad job, no one really talks about it. Like it's not like, I think lighting can be either that it sings and is like, and like affects people, or like if it is a bad job, then they don't really talk about it, or they don't really like articulate it, because they may
either then, or you've never had a bad job.
Maybe
it's possible.
It's really possible, and I'd love for that to be the case.
Oh my. We don't have a lot of time to talk about your obsession with decorating your new home.
Yes.
But we need to talk about your upcoming projects. You have two coming?
Yes. So I'm doing Circle Mirror Transformation, directed by DEEWANE at Sydney Theatre Company.
That's what, like next month, July?
Yes, that's coming up in July. I am doing a double bill at Ensemble Theatre, the How to Plot a Hit in 2 Days, and True West. They're the big ones coming up. I'm going back to the National Institute of Dramatic Arts to design a show there for them, which is really nice because I enjoy going back to working with students.
How about you sell me the show at Sydney Theatre Company? What are you going to present for Circle Mirror Transformation?
Circle Mirror Transformation is incredibly or naturalistic. I like to call it natch. I think it's an incredibly human play that requires me getting out of the way of it and not doing anything incredibly rash. But it does require a level of sophistication to it. I think it is an incredibly well-written play by Annie Baker about what it is to be human. And I think it's a play about the unspoken. It's a bunch of people doing a drama class over 6 weeks where they do exercises and drama games, and it's about just being a human. And then you get like bits of information about their outside lives through tiny conversations or picking up a phone or the way that they look at each other. So I think for me, it's a play about the unsaid. And I think it's an incredibly rich and deep show that will make you think what it is to be a person and what it is to be in relationships with other people and what it is to connect. So I'm really excited about it. Like, I think when we did the first read, I was like, wow, this is incredibly, and because it's so different when you read a play yourself to then hearing 5 actors read the play in front of you and you go, oh shit, this has resonance, and this is, you know, the play is now 15 years old and it still resonates and it's still beautifully written and it still makes you feel something. So I think it's just one of those plays that is incredibly timeless. There's one project that I'm excited about that I'm doing with National Theatre Parramatta, Daytime DEEWANE. That's like I'm doing the set and the lights for.
When's that?
That is in October. So that one I'm excited for because that's a little bit more stylistically a little bit more surreal rather than it kind of being naturalistic. So yeah, these next 3 shows are natch, and then that one's a little bit more stylized. Yeah.
You always have so much on your plate.
Yes, less now than I used to.
You just rambled on 5 things.
Yeah, but it was like at least a week between each rehearsal period. That's time off.
I can't wait to see. Thank you, Brockman.
Thanks, Bo.